Hello, Internet. Welcome to the Keeping Up with... I messed up. I was like, I second-guessed myself right when we do it. You know what? I'm just going to keep going until... and then we'll just fix it in post.
If you want me to...
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this
If
in.
you want, I can do this one.
No, I can do it.
You got it. I believe you. I believe in you.
This is, if anything, we'll cut this out, and this is the blooper. If you guys don't know, by this time, I'm trying to do the intro that you'll hear that you've been hearing, guys. This is my first take on it. All right, so just let it be quiet for a couple seconds. Welcome, Internet. Welcome to Keeping Up with the Nerds Variety Hour, coming to you from 12920 Philadelphia Street, Whittier, California, aiming to be Whittier's #1 nerdy podcast. I'm your host, Rene.
And sidekick co-host Bryan.
And this is the podcast.
What an intro. What an intro.
That was pretty good.
All right. We good to start now?
Yeah, we're good to start now.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent, Rene. So let's start with this.
Mm-hmm.
As your co-host sidekick, what is this podcast about, sir?
Basically, it is all things nerdy in both, movies, video games, comic books, TV shows, or anything that the listeners want to listen to, or just, lifestyle things as well, too. Anything, anything involving nerd, geeky things, I want to make it broad, not trying to solidify into one thing. We'll possibly talk about movies and TV shows most of the time, because that's the thing we do, us nerds. We just sit at home and watch movies and
the
shows.
Outside? What's the outside?
What's the outside?
I don't know. The sun. My eyes.
Such an introvert. I'm like half introvert.
Apparently, I am part extrovert, even though I never really want to be accepted as that, but somehow I still am. I get you on that.
I think this pandemic, mind you, with everything that's going on, I think this whole pandemic made me realize that how much of an introvert I am. It made me realize it, because I always thought, I'm not that person. I don't stay inside half the time. And then when this whole thing, when they were like shutting everything down, and I'm still this, it still hasn't changed. It just limited my ideas on what to do, or my options of like, I've always had the option to do this, always had the option to do that, and when it's taken or shut down, and I'm just like, I'm still doing the same thing.
I found myself doing the exact same thing, because when this whole thing started in early, I would say mid-February, early March kind of thing, and things started to close down. I found no change in my lifestyle. I was still, headed to work and then coming home and then playing, either playing video games or, trying to work on some stuff. Yeah. And then, I just didn't find anything different. But, I mean, you wanted to talk about this, right, on this episode?
So in this episode, we are specifically going to talk about being a nerd throughout this whole pandemic. What has been different for us and what's been going on. How did it change, or did it change for us? And basically how we feel about this whole thing, and, just our thoughts on this. Because it's something that's still happening right now. Uh-huh. And I feel like it's the time that we can finally talk about it. It's been happening for so long, going on since officially been announced.
We're hitting the first week of June.
Yeah.
So
it's been basically 2 months and a half, more than 2 months, I think.
February, March, April, 3 months.
3 months. Yeah. So I feel like within that time we can still talk about it, joke about it now. Because I think we're all basically getting tired of, dealing with everything, doing the same thing over and over again. That's why I want to release this podcast as an outlet for people to listen to while they're at home. If you're at home, you can listen to the podcast. And if you're a nerdy person, even better, listen to see how we are and how we're doing. We're maintaining social distancing here as well, too.
Yes,
Don't
we
worry.
Are. No. I should have mentioned that on my podcast. That we were like, social distancing and keeping 6 feet apart, and, just making sure that because we are recording. Yeah, we're
recording in the studio here at Undercity Comics, guys, that, they have provided us to let us record here to put out this show. So thank you for Undercity Comics. I'm also an employee here, so thank you, the owner, Susan.
Thank you, me.
Thank you, me, for letting us speak. You're welcome, Rene. Thank you, Rene.
Or are we doing? Two parallel
two
universes.
parallel different Renes here. Again, within the Renes, there's also social distancing too, in my mind.
No, yeah, this is no. Thank you, Undercity Comics, for letting us do this. Thank you, Susan. We are at this point trying to make sure that we can be known as Whittier's number one. We're just starting.
Yeah, just starting.
We're just
and
starting.
Then
but
also, current update. Everything's starting to open up, especially here at Undercity Comics. So if you guys want to come down and buy comic books, start a pull list, you're able to do that now. By the time this episode is uploaded, we'll be already third week in opening. So come on down, guys. Start a pull list and everything. Just the only thing we ask of you is just wear a mask. That's it. If you want to wear, if you don't feel comfortable, we also do curbside pickup as well too.
And for the listeners that aren't in the Whittier area or the surrounding areas and aren't able to come visit Undercity Comics, don't worry. This podcast is also aimed towards you guys as well. Like I said, or like Rene said, it'll be different topics regarding nerdy stuff, movies, video games, comic books, anything we find interesting throughout the week. Episodes will be uploaded Wednesdays at 11:30 on YouTube or Spotify. So depending where you're listening to, there are two different distribution methods that you can listen through. Whichever one you prefer. Honestly.
if you feel comfortable doing it on Spotify or Podbean or even YouTube, you have however you want to listen to it. Just please give us a listen, see if you like it. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe or follow us.
This show is pretty much evolving still.
Yeah.
We have a general idea of where we want to go to, but if things decide to move forward pretty well and listeners bring in questions that they want answered and all this other stuff, we'll probably ask or answer some questions on the podcast pretty much every week. So pretty much explain what this podcast is.
Yes.
Distribution and where people can listen to. Do you want to move on to the topics?
Yeah, let's move on to the topics. So with everything that's going on, everything being shut down, everything, and also opening, but taking precautions, I wanted to talk about how it is basically for a general nerd, how it is during quarantine, and what better way to who to talk about it than two nerds right here.
Two nerds that have had everything closed down and trying to find out what they're trying to do with themselves.
So for me, basically, when this year started, I actually had a plan on what to do before this whole thing happened. In January, I was like, okay, new year, all right, so I haven't been to conventions in a while and stuff like that, or I'm gonna go to the movies and stuff and check out newer movies, expand my horizons, because lately I think last year I was watching nothing but comic book movies, and I was like, crap, you know what, it's such a long gap between waiting for a comic book movie and just these other movies that come out as well too, because those comic book movies are considered like blockbuster now, so they don't come out until maybe April or May, so summer is like the time to go, obviously. But during that time, other movies come out, like also in Christmas and February or March, other big movies. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to try and watch new movies sometime soon. And obviously, when this whole, when COVID-19 became more and more, spreading throughout the whole world, here in California, did it hit California pretty good, or was it one of the fewer places?
No,
in the beginning,
it hit us pretty early.
I don't remember
it honestly feels like it's been so long, but it's only been like 3 months.
That's another thing too. Yeah. That's another thing too. It felt longer than what it actually has been. Being at home, just being able to go to the grocery store too. So when this whole thing started, I don't want to say I wasn't taking it seriously. I just wasn't trying to basically be panicful or trying to be worried so much about it, because in my home I live with my dad and my sister and my niece, that they were the ones being worried and being like very cautious, and I had to be the one that was like, well, we gotta just remain calm.
Is it your comic book side that kind of did that? Because I can say yes, that for me that was it. That's why I didn't necessarily say like, when I watching movies and reading comic books, I've noticed that when people are told an event is happening, or when a certain sort of bad thing is gonna happen, we just gotta prepare for it. When people see that or hear that, people can be dumb, and they start basically what happened in the beginning of this whole thing. Toilet paper was being, that's okay. I'm sorry.
Why, out of all the things, the first thing to go is toilet paper? That's what still baffles me. And it's still, it's slowly coming back, but it's like in like little small increments.
Uh-huh.
Why do we have to buy out toilet paper first? Again, like, we naturally went for like, canned goods and stuff that we can preserve. That's just in case if they told us that we have to be a lockdown home quarantine for like a week or so, or 2 weeks or so. If they were to ever told us that, my dad was like ready for that. That's what was freaking him out, was that the government or the governor was going to tell us, you can't even go outside. You have to stay in home for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With certain places were doing that.
Yeah.
That's what freaking him out. So we went to the store naturally and just try to go like, try to grab everything. But then for some reason, toilet paper was like gone.
From weeks.
Yeah. So how was that for you? I mean, grabbing toilet paper, because you live on your own, right?
No, I live with my girlfriend.
Okay.
So yeah. So for us, or at least on my end,
Yeah.
I did take it seriously. I wasn't gonna go around and start licking toilet seats like
No, oh my
certain
God.
like certain someone but I did kind of tell myself and my girlfriend, I was like, you know what, this thing will blow over by like 2 weeks from
That's
now. Like,
same mentality too.
yeah,
That's how
it'll
it was.
blow over within 2 weeks. And I think it was more of my like fantasy comic book inspired mind where like I predicted what was going to happen and it never did. It just spread and became a lot more worse and became a very, very, very serious situation here in the States and globally as well. So it just became something that I wasn't even ready for.
Yeah.
Similar to you, we started, my girlfriend actually was the one that was more worried about what was going on. I was worried, but I wasn't like to the point where I was like, we need everything.
You didn't want to add on
to the pressures and to the nervousness of what was going on.
And that's what I think, we were trying to do. And so
yeah, I went to the store, the toilet paper was all gone. I basically said, you know what, let's go for the canned goods. Canned goods were gone, meats were gone. So it was pretty much trying to grab what we needed still.
Yeah.
And just trying to normalize the situation because for me, I don't like making situations worse than they are.
Yeah.
I always try to kind of simplify the situation because when people start to panic, I feel like people start to lose mind or eyesight of the solutions. So I knew that this was, at this point, I knew that it was going to be pretty much worse. It was going to get, a lot worse.
And it did. It did for a bit.
Yeah. But, keep cool, keep calm. Study it from afar and just see how things are developing, and then possibly, down the line, just
and that's why
live with it.
I think, me being a nerd that I am, being able to watch like movies and TV shows about like dystopian worlds or, apocalyptic stuff happening and stuff, it makes you realize that like how quickly groups of people can just easily turn or just change their minds at the flip of a moment, when something bad is told to them or like I said, an event is going to happen, and how quickly everyone can just panic.
So my first thought was Fear the Walking Dead. You
Yeah.
ever see the first episode of that show?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you remember how in that first episode they did this whole scene where I think like a homeless man was like going after a cop or harmed a cop, and so they barricaded the streets, and so there was a mob outside that barricade saying like, this is police brutality and all this other stuff. Like the mob mentality is what got me, because that's what was shown at the beginning of this whole pandemic. It was people going into mobs, into the stores, and you saw the whole like stealing some stuff or, hoarding toilet paper and food from everyone, not caring about distributing it properly to everyone. It's just that fear mentality. And then people grouping together, not understanding that the disease spreads quickly when people are close together. Even now we are social distancing. You said it yourself. We're not close together recording this episode. People didn't understand that concept early on. And me being a health science major, I actually I don't want to say I enjoyed looking at it, but it was interesting.
It
for
was
me.
it was an interesting observation to see, and
It was an
real,
interesting live observation that I got to see, and to see how media reported it and stuff, and pretty much just analyzing it from afar about how human behavior, reacts to situations like this. This is the first time in our generation, at least, we got to see something this.
I think one thing that made me realize about this whole thing was a quote that I remember from Men in Black, and I don't know if you remember it. It's Tommy Lee Jones's character saying to Will Smith's character when he asks him, "How come more people don't know about this whole alien thing?" And Tommy Lee Jones tells him, he goes, "A person's smart. A person is smart.
Yeah.
But people are dumb and rational and very quick thinking."
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
What the heck?
See, and I've always lived by that quote, and that always stuck with me, and it's true. And if anything, this is the evidence that shows you that.
Sci-fi teaches you some stuff.
It does,
even though it's all
man.
fiction. It teaches you some stuff.
So I don't know. It was really interesting to watch, but then also I think what got to me towards the middle of this was more to me. It was like, because I rent, inside of an apartment complex. So, for me, I don't make a lot of money. So me and my dad make up the rent equally, and my dad was actually not laid off, but, stopped working during, I think it was in March or beginning of April, he was on furlough. And he works for an aerospace company as well too that does planes. That's why he was let go, because airlines were getting shut down, fewer people were on flights, so they didn't really his company didn't really need to be open anymore until after this whole thing. So what got to me was like, oh crap, how are we gonna make rent? What are we gonna do? And so then they were saying, then they started, that's what got me panicking, was like, it wasn't necessarily the food or the toilet paper, it was just, where the F am I gonna live, you know? And I was just like, oh man. And then basically they announced, okay, if you're living or in an apartment or paying bills, certain companies can let it go for this whole time being. Like, so if you need to pay your Wi-Fi, I had Spectrum is still letting that happen, where it's like, if you can't pay it right away, don't worry, we'll still have it on.
Push it back.
Yeah, we'll push it back. You still have to pay the bill. We just need to catch up on it next time. So I was trying to chisel at that, and luckily we talked to our landlords. They were nice, enough to say that, well, just give me what you have. If you can give me all of it, great. If you can't, we'll work out a payment thing if you want to or need to. Luckily, we signed up for EDD. And then we got the stimulus check. My dad got that, so that's what kept us going for stuff.
Thankfully, everything was pretty much
everything was
worked
good.
out.
Yeah, for me that was the most. Yeah, like I said, the one thing that made me panic was just what's that mean? Because I rent. I don't have a home. Home. Yeah, I just rent out an apartment complex inside of an apartment complex. So it's like crap. I can't make the rent with my checks alone, but me and my dad equally can.
Yeah. And so how have you been, thankfully everything's working out as it is. How have you managed to cope with this whole pandemic situation?
For me, it's, I did do rereading. So I reread, comic books and stuff like that. I reread Fables, which is, if you guys don't know anything about Fables, it's a great comic book. If you've heard of the show Once Upon a Time, this is better. Way better. I feel like they stole the concept of that. Basically grim fairy tale characters basically live in modern time New York City, and the mayor, and they have their own little section in New York called Fabletown. It's hidden from mortals.
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And basically, you have Nat King Cole. That's the mayor. Snow White is basically the one that does all the technical stuff. It's funny, actually. Prince Charming. You know how Prince Charming? There was a Prince Charming for Snow White. There was a Prince Charming for Cinderella, Rapunzel, and also Sleeping Beauty. There was a Prince Charming for all of them. This is one guy. He married all those women over time.
Wait, that's actually in the show?
No, that's in the comic book.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the comic book.
Fables.
Oh. Yeah, in Fables, there's one Prince Charming, and he married over time, but not at once. His first wife was Snow White, then Cinderella, Rapunzel, and Sleeping Beauty. It was all, so basically they all divorced him, and then all the princesses get together like once a week and at a cafe to talk crap about him. It's really good.
What?
Yeah, you ever heard of this comic book, man?
No.
Dude, it's so good. Like this is it was like my first introduction to non-superhero comic books. You got to check it out. It's from Vertigo. Vertigo put it out called Fables. I think we have it here. And yeah, and then Pinocchio is a little boy, but the thing is that when he got turned into a little boy, the blue fairy never told him that he would stay as a little boy for the rest of his life. So he's like a 50 or 40 something year old man, but he's just like a little boy. You see him smoking, drinking, hitting on all the princesses, and they're like, ew, get away.
Some of these writers, man, it's like you give them free liberty to do what they want.
Well, yeah. And then, one of the best things was Beauty and the Beast. So Beauty and the Beast are in it.
Uh-huh.
And Belle. So basically, you know how like Beast became a human?
Uh-huh.
So the spell says that as long as he could stay human when Belle loves him. But when they get into arguments, she's not loving him, so he turns back into Beast when they get into arguments or they get mad at each other and stuff.
I mean,
like
I'm
that.
staying quiet, not just because like I'm staying quiet. I'm actually making faces this whole time because
Yeah.
it just doesn't.
No,
I
yeah,
guess
bro-
the stuff that,
it's kind of like he's like trying to process it, and it's like what? He's like,
it's like I get it, but like what the heck?
and then Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk is in it, and he's actually an asshole because he didn't really kill the giants. They think that he's lying and stuff, so he's trying to be like he tries his whole life to be a hero, but he's just an idiot, you know.
He's like his ego is like way
His
too-
ego
yeah.
is super big, yeah.
What's his comic book?
The Fables.
The Fables.
Fables. And
By
it's Bill Willington.
okay.
And he's great. He finished the series. It was like it went on for so long. It almost went on for 10 years, I believe. And it was so good. So basically, and then one of my favorite characters. So basically, one of my favorite characters is Bigby. He's the sheriff of town. He's the sheriff of Fabletown, but he is the former big bad wolf.
Uh-huh.
And he is a human, but he can turn into a werewolf. And when he gets mad enough, he can turn into a giant wolf. A giant wolf that can just like
So
blow.
the ability to like change and shapeshift and stuff
Shapeshift
into
is
like
really
his
cool.
his original forms. And
Yeah.
stuff.
So he's really cool. And then like, he has a great power to blow things because he was also part of the Three Little Pigs.
Uh-huh.
He was the same big bad wolf from that and also Little Red Riding Hood.
This
But
is
he
a
is sheriff,
weird
and
book.
he is sheriff of Fabletown. But he's actually a really cool character.
The last ever comic book I ever read that was in similar concept to something like this that isn't like the norm was Paper Girls.
Oh, Paper Girls is good though.
Yeah, Paper Girls was really good. Good art, good writing as well.
yeah.
But that
I
one was
love
like,
Paper
yeah.
Girls. Brian K. Vaughan is a great writer. He's also he also wrote Why the Last Man, which is a good one.
Oh.
Yeah, about a guy that wakes up in a world where all the males are gone or dead, and he's the only one alive with the whole world full of females. So any mammal with a Y chromosome died, and he's the only one alive with a monkey that has the same Y chromosome as
See, you say all this, and sometimes I'm just kind of like, this is stuff that you need to read and
Yeah.
not have someone explain to you because
Yeah.
it's like it's an interesting concept.
It's a concept, yeah. I
like
tried
try
to say the
explaining that
concept.
to like try explaining Planet of the Apes to someone. They won't make any sense when you speak it, but
yeah.
when you watch it, like
Yeah.
you're like, okay, now I understand 100%. All right, so you've been rereading.
I've been rereading and then also watching movies as well too.
So let me ask, how's the industry been during this whole pandemic?
So throughout this whole pandemic, we were actually doing fine in the beginning. It's just that we had to put up the restrictions where it's like we couldn't necessarily be open to the public, and they were shutting down a lot of non-essential businesses. And we fall in the category of a bookstore,
So
so we could essentially be open. But as long as we were trying to stay open as hard as we can, but then our distributor had to shut down because of the pandemic. And
distributor
stuff like
or writing like
No,
Marvel and
just the
DC and Dark Horse?
No, just the distributor, because
Okay.
they were the ones putting out the comic books, and there's only one distributor. So, so when they had to shut down because of where they were located, they were in lockdown whatever they were located at, so they couldn't no longer send comic books for the time being. So we actually had to shut down for, I think it was going for 2 months. We were shut down for 2 months, and that we shut down in I think the end of April.
Uh-huh.
No, sorry. Mid-April. Or was it March? I don't remember up to this point.
Mid-March.
Was it mid-March?
Mid-March.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember the Facebook
yeah.
post. Yeah.
God, see, yeah. Yeah, it was mid-March we had to shut down. So we were shut down in mid-March. I want to say like March 15th or 19th or something like that. And then basically, I couldn't work here anymore. So we had to basically do what we can and stuff like that. But then I was following the distributor on Twitter and stuff like that, hoping to hear from news from them soon. And then we got a call, or, the owner here got a call, and basically she called me and said, hey, we're going to open up again in May 20th. I was like, May 20th? That's the date? They're like, yeah, they're going to send comic books out now. So, we opened up, which was nice. We're here right now, still sending out comic books. But the thing is, our distributor right now, because there's a backlog.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
it's like
there is a backlog of comic books that were supposed to come out. Actually, DC decided to jump the gun and send out, it was like a week before we had to open, put out comic books. There were like 3 or 4 actual single issue comic books, which I think it had to revolve around Flash, Wonder Woman, Hawkman, and I think like some Justice League book or something like that. And they jumped the gun, and then next thing you know, Diamond was like, well, we're going to put out comic books by next week. And so that's what got everyone worried. The one thing that everyone was worried about throughout this whole thing was, were comic books gone? Or is digital the new thing? And that's not true. I never believed that digital was going to be replacing.
Yeah, I can see where people worry about that stuff. Yeah. Real quick, before you move on to the whole digital aspect, because that is something that I do want to, I want to tickle your brain here, since, and see how you lead this. But you said that there was a back catalog.
There is backlogs of books that didn't come out just yet. They're slowly coming out now.
So for our comic book readers, should they be afraid? Or, because I'll be honest with you, I haven't kept up with my books since the shutdown.
Yeah.
So since pretty much, because for me, I this is the comic book store I go to pick up my books, So when you guys shut down, I assumed that companies weren't going to write anymore or release anything more until, it was appropriate to do so.
Yeah, so there were plans to come out with basically the new Marvel event. And there was the new Marvel event called Empire that was supposed to come out. We're actually supposed to be in the middle of that right now, but it hasn't even started.
Okay.
It still hasn't started.
So there's a backlog, but they're still releasing it.
They're still releasing it, and then there are actually some books they are canceling because they're at the last 2 books at it, and Marvel's not going to put them out at all. Marvel's going to actually just put out the trade, and those missing issues will be included in there.
Huh.
So the books revolving that I know for sure is Valkyrie Jane Foster. That's gonna end, but the last few issues will be in the trade. And then Revenge of Cosmic Ghost Rider. It had, I think, 1 or 2 issues left, and it's not going to complete single issue wise, but it will be in the, like I said, the trade.
So those are examples of pretty much like what's going to happen with that.
Yeah. So it's only books that are not necessarily popular into the public eye, but if you were following them for your own, because you like those books, there are certain smaller titles that Marvel, DC put out, they are actually canceling. Those are only, but not like big books, like obviously not like Batman.
Side stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Batman or anything like that. But they are canceling certain titles. I think another one that DC announced that they're going to cancel, I think soon, will possibly be Terrifics or something like that.
Now, for our for people that don't know the actual lingo to like the comic book stuff, what do you mean by trades?
Oh, trades. Sorry. Yeah. So basically trades are collections of 6 or 7 issues in one book of a whole story arc in one binding format of a book and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're reading single issues and you've never read a trade, that's what basically that is. It is basically issues 1 through 6 of whatever title you're reading, and just in a whole format of just one, like a binge read almost in a way that you can.
If you want to compare it to a TV show or something, how Avatar: The Last Airbender. Wait, did you watch the series, right?
Yeah, I started watching it.
You start. Okay, so you don't know.
Well, I know that
I'm trying to think of something that's like relatable.
Like it's in book one, isn't it? Like one season is like book one, isn't it?
Yeah, but there was an episode in the show where they do like tales of the tales of Iroh and the tales of like things like that. But it's like a full episode.
From the main arc.
Yeah, it strays from the main arc, but it's like side stories of characters as they go into.
Oh, those are sometimes the best episodes.
But is that what you could say a trade is?
Yeah,
it's just like little little snippets of stories, but in a bigger book, and it's just okay. So that's what a trade is for people, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we've discussed that. So do people need to fear that the back catalog is going to catch up to them like that, and people that have pull lists need to buy like hundreds of dollars worth of books within the 2 months?
DC is. From this week alone, DC put out 3 issues of Flash.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you might have to, have a beefier transaction in the coming weeks, but it should. I mean, but that's only if you want to catch up. So that's the whole reason. They're kind of putting like an ultimatum where it's like, we'll have 3 books there, but if you want to catch up, you got to buy all 3 of them in that 1 week,
Uh-huh.
And it is kind of, it is a bit of a, petty move or a mean move to do. But at the same time, I think the distributors and the publishers don't want to be backed up for too long. They kind of want to get back to the normal schedule of stuff.
You think that would be the opposite, though, because having a backlog basically means that you can kind of slack off on your deadlines. Because I know that that's been an issue with a lot of these companies is that they say, well, we need to release this arc by a certain day. What was the Watchmen one that was the DC released? Doomsday
Clock.
Clock. That one was supposed to be finished.
Yeah, that was supposed to be finished almost a year
months
and a half
ago.
No, a year and a half ago.
A year and a half?
Yeah, because it was a 12-issue series.
No, it was not 12 issues. You told
12?
me that it was shorter than 12.
No, it was actually supposed to be shorter than 12.
Yeah, so you told me that it was shorter than 12.
Then it came out to be 12 issues.
Because
originally it was supposed to be 10 or 8 issues.
Yes,
then
I remember.
They pushed it to 12, and then it was like, a 12-issue monthly series. Okay, that's supposed to be
interesting.
Like a year. Like,
yeah.
Okay, cool. I have a whole year to read Doomsday Clock. Then when it released, right before it got released, it was 12-issue bi-monthly series, and it's like, what?
Why are they? Yeah.
Why is it 1 issue every 2 months then?
But you think that backlog that they would be,
so
holding back onto would be enough leeway for them to say, well, instead of canceling or pushing back the date of a release of a certain book, we can actually release this, because there's a backlog of this, and give the writers more time and the artists more time to do what they're supposed to do. So,
and then come to find out, it was because, and mind you, this was hinted over a span of like 3 years. Doomsday Clock. So basically, if I have any new listeners, it's Doomsday Clock is the first ever crossover between Watchmen characters and DC characters.
First ever, or
this is the first thing that's ever happened, I think, for these Vertigo characters to meet. I mean, well, at least for Watchmen, at least there's never really ever been. It's always been a separate thing. So to see that, oh wow, like we're gonna cross over with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman with other Watchmen characters, it's gonna be really interesting. So it was hinted at it for like 3 years that it was something like this was coming. We didn't know exactly what it was, but there was a thing that it was the Rebirth one shot for DC Comics where it was like they're revamping everything again because they can do that,
Yeah.
And basically what hinted at it was that something came into the Batcave from like this little lightning strike, and it was the comedian's button. It was the comedian's button that he was holding inside the Batcave, and we're like, wait, what? So is that
the comedian's button is the yellow smiley face with the blood stain that most people see? Yeah, so just in case.
So it's like, oh wow, like what's that mean? And they never touched on it again until they did the button where they investigated the button with him and Batman and the Flash investigated it, but it was just like a whole nother thing that strayed from that. But it was like the whole theory of they can go through parallel dimensions a little easier in a way.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that was taken from that. But other than that, yeah, they've been so this was hinted, and so then basically a whole year went by, and then another year went by, and then they finally announced Doomsday Clock, everything what everyone's been waiting for. We're like, cool. And then next thing you know, the issues are coming out once every 2 months, and then by issue 5, they're like, "Oh, it's not gonna release the following month. We're gonna hold out to the next month." So that was like 3 months.
I still have issues that advertise Doomsday Clock as far back as maybe 6 months before its release date. Because I remember I came into the store and asked for it to be pulled on my pull list.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's to think that we're still talking about this almost, like you said, a year and a half into what supposedly was supposed to be released. But it's kind of interesting to see that the industry hasn't necessarily suffered as, not the industry to say, the publishing companies.
Yeah,
is
DC
what I'm
and
looking at.
Marvel, yeah.
They're not, they haven't necessarily like struggled, I guess, in producing the content.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was a fear that comic books were done since stores were closing.
Yeah, that was the common thing that I was getting asked when we were heading towards our shutdown date, was that people were asking, well, if new comics are not going to be shipped out, how are we going to get them? And I was like, well, they might just do a few issues digitally, which they did. They did a few issues digitally. If you wanted to read it, if you truly wanted to see what happens next, you can buy it digitally, which is cheaper. Sometimes they're $1.99, or they sell them under $2.99 or $1 as well too. But companies, I think the publishing companies don't make a lot of money off of digital transactions. You know?
Plus, it's also a format that's not really popularized in that.
Yeah, there are some people that do that.
Group.
Yeah, I've talked to certain people in my circle where they read it digitally just to keep up. Now they just want to read what's happening, which I get. But at the same time, there are people like you and me that love the original format of holding
the book,
flipping the page, going panel by panel, and it's just you're taking away the experience.
Yeah,
the experience was taken away, and it's that really awesome experience that we missed so much that it can never really go away.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as a normal book. People read books digitally, which is fair if that's the easiest way that they can get the book without going out to Barnes and Noble and buying it and stuff like that. And then that's fair. Or ordering a book online too. You can still order normal books online. But people buy books online because they like to pull the page over, read the words, have that, imagine in their head as they're holding the book.
I've always found like the two separate groups of comic books and, normal book, I don't know if there's enthusiasts, but like, comic book readers and book readers.
Yeah.
I feel like book readers have adapted into the digital lifestyle. You have your what are they called? The Amazon Kindles. So you have your Kindles. You have I think Google might have had one as well.
Google has it's like Chromebook or something.
Chromebook is their laptop, but I think I don't know what it is. I know that different companies have like these like digital book.
Yeah, they're just
storage
solely
things.
they're solely just meant to be holding just digital books.
Yeah, and so that group has kind of adopted the digital aspect. I've seen it at least where most people have them. Yeah, which I think is interesting because one, you could say it saves paper, makes it more accessible, cheaper prices. By all means, if that's the thing that you could do and you like it, go for it. But do you feel like comic books can ever adapt into that digital aspect or no?
I treat comic books as the same way as people that collect vinyl records. It's a medium where, not a lot of people will do, not everyone will do it, but there's a group of people that will still keep it, going. And I feel like, comic books will never truly leave because at the same time, when you hold a first appearance of a character, it's more value when you physically have it than opposed to digitally have it, So I think for that sole reason, comics will never go away quickly, at least.
It'll be some time. There'll still be some fighters that are going to be wanting the actual physical copies. It's going to be like the long process of because I'm sure few
people that still do vinyl records or collect vinyl records.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as we both collect certain
Mhm.
stuff, you know, if it's not comic books,
Mhm.
I collect like pieces from collector's editions of video games.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be that fandom that's
Mhm.
going to appreciate the physical stuff of
Mhm.
those certain things.
Yeah.
You know, you can mention people. What's the value of the Batman comic that showed his penis compared to the value of an actual comic book, the physical copy of the one of the issue that had Batman's
Yeah,
penis
the
in
first original.
that's
print,
worth
yeah.
more than the digital copy. So you can have the digital copy.
Mhm.
The other people think that people don't think about is digital copies can be censored at any moment
Yeah.
because they can just go back, revise, and all this
and
other
guess
stuff.
what? That value of that is gone then.
Done. Any misprint, anything completely gone because the physical copy won't ever have it.
Yeah.
So the value will always be there, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, the value is always going to be there in comic books, like I said. Like, my first appearance of Spider-Gwen, I think, goes for well over, like, $200 ungraded.
Do I have it or do I not have it?
We'll see.
Do I want it to get graded? I mean, if I have it, you know.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's why it's like, I was very confident to know that, or I was already confident that comic books are not going to be totally phased out at all.
Yeah.
Not even the slightest. So I was like, no, I was confident it was gonna come back. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah.
You know.
That's interesting. That's interesting to see. So I'm assuming that people shouldn't really be worried about the industry going
under or
anything like that. Still going strong.
Yeah, it's just basically we're waiting for. I mean, the only one that's putting out comic books pretty good amount is DC. DC seems to be pumping out their books as fast as they can. Marvel is still taking their time right now, but it's mostly of just continuations. They haven't put out anything new, like a number one or anything like that. I think
DC
right now,
is releasing number one still?
No, not at the moment. Again, it's but they're pumping out more books than Marvel is, though. That's the thing. Marvel only came out with less than 8 books this week alone, and they still have to put out Empire number 1. DC still needs to put out certain. They haven't put out a valuable comic yet. That's what I'm saying, like a first appearance or a special edition book, because there's supposed to be a Joker anniversary issue coming out, which is like an 80-page thing. That hasn't been released yet. 3 Jokers hasn't been released yet. That's been hinted over like a span of 2 years, you know. And a new metal series is coming out for Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder.
And the metal series is something that's been long running.
Yeah,
in the background for those that don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where the Joker Who Laughs or the Batman Who Laughs comes from. For those that are interested in that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What about other publishing companies?
So same thing. They haven't put out a number one. There's still continuations. Independent ones are more. I think they're more trying to figure out the plan of what issues to come out with. I think they want to wait until maybe later in June, because right now I think most publishers are afraid to put out anything new in case if like a second wave hits for the pandemic and stuff like that.
So they're kind of holding back.
They're holding
being
back.
Precautious on it.
You can tell they're holding back a lot, and that's going to be really interesting to see in June or July, because now they've solicited where you can buy the newer stuff that's supposed to come out in July now. So.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So you can buy July's releases pretty much.
Well, you know, I mean, like, or pre-order it.
Oh,
like
pre-order.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Where you could just go through the catalog, and it's like, this is supposed to come out in June. This is going to come out in August. Like, they've already categorized, okay, this is what's coming out. So that's why I'm like, okay, but you're still soliciting, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you're really holding back on trying to put out all your comic books.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the industry pretty much well and done. Comic book stores are slowly opening up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would you say that people that have pull lists or DC pull lists are the ones that are going to have to end up paying more and keeping up?
I think so, because right now DC seems to be having a plan. It looks like they might choose a hero or a character to put out for 1 week. So like this week was like Flash had a good amount of titles. I think next week might be like a Batman title that might come out. That's another thing too. There's supposed to be a big Batman story arc happening right now, or we're supposed to be already in the middle of, and it hasn't come out yet, which is called Joker's War, which is another story arc between Batman and Joker. That's written by Tony Daniel.
See, people think that comic books is like an easy thing to get into, but then when you get into it, it's like a lot more complicated.
The thing is that you know, when you come into the store or a comic book store and be like, I want to read Batman. Okay. Well, you
There's
got
like 3 different books, mainline series.
Or and then you get to some people are like, well, I want to read from number 1. And I'm like, well, that's going to be hard. Do you want the single issues or do you want the collections, which are easier, you know, especially for reading? But there are the peer people, the new people that want to be like the peer readers already, and they'd be like, they think they could just come in and buy Batman number 1. And I was just like, yeah, see, like that idea.
Yeah, no. Actually, this brings me to a good question. Probably one of the last questions before we wrap this episode up. For anyone that's trying to get into comic books, especially now that things are slowly starting to open up and stuff like that, you can't get into number 1s. I'm sorry, but even as someone, I can tell you right now, I've had people ask me as well. It's like, oh, well, if I were to get into this series, how do I get into it? Do I pick up the number 1? Buddy, oh man. You want number 1 Batman? You're going to have to go all the way back to its beginnings in the 50s or whatever. I mean, you can start you off somewhere else. So most people, you know, it's easier to recommend, at least the way I see it. And then you can correct me if I'm wrong and you can give your own way. But the way I see it is, if you're trying to introduce someone into Batman, for example, tell them what exactly they want to know. Because you can start them off in any arc and then have them go from there and explore. Because I've always felt like DC does a really good job at separating its arcs and keeping them to themselves, but also maintaining their continuity within their universe. The Bat Bunny suit is the example I can think of. The Bat Bunny suit was glorious, but that was when who was it that was Batman? It
was Jim Gordon.
Jim Gordon Batman, right? And so what happened exactly? That was years ago.
So that was after Endgame of Batman and Joker's.
Batman dies.
Yeah, Batman and Joker die in a it was like the cave. It was like some sort of cave that they were in, and it was like a Lazarus pit. That was what it was.
They were trying to find the Lazarus pit.
Yeah, because Joker tapped into it and he was using it for his own well-endowed.
Which is why he was who he was pretty much. How he was able to live so long.
And basically, the writer wrote it as basically if this was the final confrontation between Batman and Joker, like if it was
not if it was, if it, because it is, for at least I think it was like his run. I think he was trying to do for Batman and stuff like that. So. What was that arc called? It was Death of the Family, or
no, that was when he reintroduced the Joker. This one was called Endgame, the one that had Batman and Joker die. Endgame.
Is that Endgame? Oh, that is Endgame. That is Endgame. Okay, I'm thinking of a different one. That was Endgame. Death of or in the Family is before Endgame.
Yeah, it was Death of a Family.
Death of a Family was before Endgame, then the Endgame arc, and then the arc where Jim Gordon was Batman. I think that was the time where DC wanted to switch all up their 3 main heroes, which was, or the Trinity, which was Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Because during that time, it was called DCU. Or DCU or something like that, and then basically Jim Gordon was Batman. Superman was depowered, that he was only wearing like a shirt, and something like that. yes, I remember a black shirt like Superboy.
And then Wonder Woman, I think she became like a more savage Wonder Woman or something like that.
That I didn't keep up with. I wouldn't be able to tell you if I was it.
So they wanted to change up the Trinity essentially and just make them look different and be different, which is fair.
That's the beauty of DC, where we essentially just tackled 3 different arcs, but you can tell any reader, well, where do you want to start? And you don't get left behind that much. So someone coming into the store and saying, hey, I really want to get into Justice League because people are talking about the Snyder Cut, and this is coming out next year. I really want to know some more stuff. How do I start? Do I pick up issue number 1 of Justice League, or tell me, Rene, what do I do after post quarantine, post epidemic stuff? Well, how would you start someone off?
So basically, like, what I tell people is that, okay, when they come in and it's a fresh new reader that wants to get into comic books, I tell them, okay, what do you like? And they go, well, so like people will be like, okay, do you like Marvel or DC? And they go, well, and if they don't even know that, I go, what character do you like or interested, or what
man
character,
with red cape? Superman.
So like, or what character are you interested in following or that you like? And they go, oh, well, I like Batman. And it's like, okay, well, Batman. I'm like, where do you want to go with Batman? Where, like, what did you like of Batman? Well, I liked his like villains and stuff like that. Okay, all right. all right, this is what we're gonna do. I tell them read like Arkham Asylum, but the art's a little weird. Like how are you on art? Do you want it simple, or do you want it more abstract? And they're like, well, I just want to be able to see it. And I'm like, okay, so this is a simple person. I go, okay, so I'll recommend like maybe like Court of Owls. It's a good story, very, and it's like, it's a new type of story that I got into. And it's like basically a new type of villain where Batman's taking on like an assassin cult, and it was like, oh, then they'll go into that. Or if they want to read something Joker like, I'll be like, okay, well, you can read basically Batman Hush that has a good Joker story in the middle of it, and then just go from there. Or you can read Killing Joke, like that's another good one as well too. Or Batman Noel, where Joker and Batman are together on Christmas Day or Christmas night, and it's a good story. And it's like, okay, it starts from there, and that's basically where it starts, snowballs. Or if people tell me, well, I like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, or if they tell me I like Captain America, Iron Man, and they can't choose, I tell them then read a team book, Justice League or Avengers. Read those ones, and then you kind of figure out what your favorite character is from there and stuff like that.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so that's pretty much how you walk them through this whole,
that's usually my go-to, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do. If they don't know what character exactly, you can never go wrong with a team up group or a team up book, because it has so many people in it, that if they only enjoyed watching the Avengers movies just because to see the interaction, then just read an Avengers book. You can still get the same thing. Or if they only like a couple of characters, then just read those ones.
So you'd be doing what the movies essentially did.
Yeah, I'm going off of what people like in the movies, or what was more popular during the time and stuff like that.
And okay, so you would pretty much recommend to listeners, if you want to get into a book, kind of just do this. Especially if they can't talk to someone like they're like if you local comic book store or something like that.
If you can't go up to someone and tell them, just honestly follow what you like, or what you're always interested in, or what genre you kind of gravitate towards. If you like sci-fi, it's not hard to kind of look it up and be like, okay, what sci-fi comic books are out there? Kind of just do a little Google search, and if you see one that interests you, just go to your local comic book store and ask if they have that book.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a little research too. I had to do the same thing. Like, people always ask me, how did you start reading comic books? And I was like, oh, well, I honestly, when I started reading comic books, I went to Borders, and I just picked up all the random books, titles, covers that I liked, sat down and just read all of them, and then I put them back. But I was a little kid at the time.
I think that's how people are scared of. Most like people that are trying to get into this sort of stuff is they're scared that there's an oversaturation of the amount of content.
It's a little overwhelming of all the books you see, but to me that was the fun of it. Like, I was looking into, there was a Batman book that was really cool that had to do with Damian Wayne, and I grabbed that. And then there was also a Green Lantern book that had to do with Blackest Night with the with the Black Lanterns. I grabbed that as well too. And then you kind of figure out which books you're following and stuff like that. And it's not hard. Again, it does take a lot of time and money, obviously, because you're going to be buying them. But at the same time, that's part of the fun. You're finding out what you like. And for me, I always gravitated towards Batman and Flash. I never got into Superman comic books because I felt like those ones were the really hard ones to read, because you have an overpowering character. You have a character that can do pretty much anything.
You expect the main character to win constantly.
Yeah,
there's no
there's no problematic problems he could face, because he can't get hurt. He can figure it out pretty quick, or he can solve a problem really quick. So I was like, okay, but then there are some good Superman stories out there. I just, haven't gotten to reading them.
This is your personal.
That's my personal preference, is because this is why I like Batman, because he's just human. Even though, any problem Batman can probably figure out as well too, because he's Batman, or he always has something in
that's
his
why they call it
utility
Detective
belt.
Comics.
Yeah, Detective Comics.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like,
So people shouldn't be scared, pretty much, of going into comic books, especially after all this.
No, after all this, we are taking extra precautions. So we're very, making social distance. So it's like it's still the same thing. You come in, ask me what you like or want. I can give you a couple examples, but at the end of the day, it is up to you if you want to read it, or if it's up to you if you want to take that risk and try it out and stuff. But I guarantee you won't be disappointed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Even with the back catalog, people shouldn't be scared.
Yeah,
pretty
you can
much.
still, if anything, it's a good way for people to catch up on books that they've been buying and they haven't read yet, because there's a good amount of people that have done that too, where they're buying the comic books but they haven't had the time to read. Now is the time to catch up and see what's going on, and then like you can branch out from there.
That's pretty good. All right. Anything else, Rene, that you maybe want to mention this, or you think this would be a good episode?
Yeah, no, I think if anything, that's pretty much it for everything that's going on. We'll possibly try to tackle more stuff that's going on maybe next week.
This is our introductory episode.
This is the first
Give you
episode.
a taste of pretty much what's to expect.
What's to happen. We're just basically going to talk about everything that's going on in nerd life and stuff like that.
Talk movies.
Yeah, we were supposed to talk about different topics, but we ended up talking about comic books, which is fun actually. This was actually really fun to do. I didn't think we were going to talk about.
That's the beauty of podcasting.
Yeah.
You always end up just having conversations with someone and just get lost in the wonder of just the conversation.
Yeah.
You lead into different things. But future episodes will have topics regarding movies, topics regarding video games, anything like that. And I would actually like to see us talk about things that, oh man, I completely lost the thing I was going to mention. Just right now. You ever had that conversation where you speak and then you're just like midway through a sentence, you're just like, just gone completely.
Just take it out of your mind.
Like, what the heck was I going to do? Things like the Snyder Cut, for example, of Justice League, how that was announced. Right now, I feel like it's a little too early to talk about because there isn't enough information.
Yeah, there isn't enough information. We just know that if I was to talk about just a little bit, I'm just shocked that it exists.
Yeah, exactly.
I was more shocked at that.
I have my own take on it where I think that there isn't such a thing as a Snyder Cut. Even though they announced it, I honestly think that it's a little difficult.
I know what you mean.
It's like we had the Justice League movie. How much more can he come in to say like we're gonna snip some things here and there and add Darkseid into this whole thing?
From what I've been told or what I've been looking into. Apparently there are scenes that they filmed
that weren't used
because
it was Joss Whedon who finished it, right?
Yeah, he did the reshoots and stuff like that.
So I mean, we can talk more about those things when more of these, more pieces of news come out, because right now it's a little too early to discuss.
Yeah,
especially if
HBO Max just launched a week ago now?
Yeah, great service by the way.
Yeah, you have it?
Oh my god, yeah. I at this point just screw Disney Plus. Disney Plus is dead. I'll straight up say it.
I think it's dead because Mandalorian season 1 is done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Until November.
Yeah.
Yeah, then everyone will get their subscription back and running. I just hope they don't raise the price on it.
Oh, they will. It's Disney. It's Disney. They have to. We talk bad about Disney. They shut down this podcast. Episode 1 shut down immediately.
That's another thing to mention. Me and Bryan might poke fun at Disney once in a while.
Not that we hate it. It's just they're kind of the easy target,
They're easy to
Plus, we'll see how much we can talk about it before we actually get shut down
by
Disney.
Or like a cease and desist.
Excuse me, you guys can't be discussing Disney property in such a negative way. But I mean, it's America. We get nope. They're done. We can't do that.
Walt Disney will roll over in his frozen grave right now. I still believe this is my conspiracy theory. I still believe Walt Disney's frozen in Disneyland or something.
And you know what? There's always different conspiracies. There's that. They're saying that his head is like in cryostasis underneath the clock of the main castle. It's just stuff like that.
One theory got posted, and it actually makes me think. When you searched before Frozen came out, when you searched Disney's Frozen, it would pop up that conspiracy theory.
And now it's actual Frozen.
Now it's just the actual Frozen movie.
Is that why they made Frozen?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
We talk about conspiracy theories too. Yeah. No, but this is the kind of stuff that I think that people should expect from us. Right now, this episode is more of our introductory thing. We didn't really necessarily plan out how this was going to be laid out. We had an idea of the topic. We wanted to talk comic books because this is the thing that we are aiming for. We want to be, Whittier's #1 source for nerdy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but also to our listeners that are out of the area and not currently living in Whittier or around the surrounding areas. We want to make it accessible to you guys and let you guys know what we think about these certain things, because there is a lot of stuff that's coming out.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Snyder Cut, summer's around, and summer's usually the time of video game launches and stuff. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on the Xbox conferences. Sony's having theirs in June, first week of June.
They're announcing something today.
No, June 6th.
No. Oh, June 6th?
4th or June 6th,
Okay.
something like that.
They're hinting at stuff.
They're hinting, so we can discuss that, because you're a PS player, PlayStation
PS4,
player. I'm an Xbox PC player, so we've got different perspectives on those things as well. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to discuss. These episodes are going to come out every Wednesday around 11:30. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested, please leave a subscribe or a follow on that Spotify or YouTube, Podbean as well.
Yeah.
And if anyone is interested in giving us questions to answer, leave them down there below.
We will answer them.
We will answer them. If there is interaction, we will do the interaction.
Yeah.
Renee, you want to take the outro, or should I take over this one?
Go ahead. I did the intro.
Go for this one. Okay.
So, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Keeping Up with the Nerds Variety Hour. Host Rene, super sidekick co-host Bryan. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Coming to you live from, can you do the address?
12920 Philadelphia Street, Whittier, California. We're recording at Undercity Comics.
Thank you guys so much. We will see you all in the next one.